I wouldn't mind. I think that's
Okay.
actually, but I think the All Star Weekend has jumped the shark.
Okay.
Part of the All Star Weekend, and he became a big part of it, was former President Barack Obama. And he and his lovely wife Michelle were sitting courtside during the game. Barry got a ball, jumped right to him. He caught it. He's got good hands. He plays a little ball, and he was on with Reggie Miller and everything else. But he also had a little press conference and talked about the game itself. And he thinks that there's a problem in the league, and he thinks it's injuries, and he thinks it's a bit of a problem, and he has a solution that I couldn't disagree with more, at least because of his reasoning. I'm quoting Barack Obama here. I won't do a Barack impression.
Please don't.
And I told you during the break, one of the things I really like about Barack Obama, who's been on our show before.
That is right, he has.
One thing I really like about him, he was president when he was young enough that he's still like a factor and he's out and about now after 2 terms. So it's kind of nice seeing a former president out doing his thing, even though his thoughts on the NBA might be misguided. Might not be, but I think they kind of are. He says this.
Feels very like corporate cut sandwich.
He had a little press conference during the All-Star Weekend, which is cool. You got a former president hanging out with the league. That's cool. He says it's more intense than it was in previous eras. Beg to differ on that in the first place. Quote from President Obama: "The average NBA player today is so much more athletic, more talented, more skilled in the way the game is played." I'll hit those real quick. More athletic? Yes. More talented?
Yes.
Not necessarily. More skilled?
Yes.
Not necessarily. In the way the game is played. He said, you watch those old hardwood classics, guys aren't running that hard. Everybody's kind of dribbling and everybody is going in the paint and they're all sitting there. You watch now, particularly if you go to games live, people are playing so hard because you have to close out at the 3-point line, which, by the way, they don't do very often, and the amount of running and the strain on the body, etc., it's remarkable. Okay? He said, I think the game has evolved and it continues to get better. He thinks that you should shorten the season because of all the strain on players. He says they're playing at a much faster pace than they did 20 years ago. True. So it was easier to play 82 games or 75 games back then than it is today. What the president is missing on is this. The game is cyclical. And maybe 20, 25, 30 years ago, they did play at a slower pace. And they've changed it. This year, this is the 6th highest scoring season in NBA history so far, averaging 115.6 points per game. However, the 5 seasons above it were from 1962, 61, 67, 70, and 68, when they didn't have a 3-point line.
Yep.
So the tempo back then was nuts.
Yes.
So I don't know what hardwood classics he's looking at. He must be looking at Bad Boy Pistons and that era from, like, say, the 90s, maybe late 80s, because he's not looking at the 1960s. Because if you ever looked at basketball from the 60s, it was a free-flowing game without the 3-point line, and they were still outscoring what they're doing now.
It was really fun back then.
Oh, it was great.
It's a really fun game.
It was a really fun game.
Yeah.
You're not old enough to have watched it. I was a kid.
Yeah, I've watched footage of it.
It was great. And ball in the 70s was a lot of fun. Here's something else that the president's kind of missing. Okay, they're playing 82 games now. They played 82 games then. Training methods, science behind the game, so much better now. So these guys are supposed to be in better shape. You can make the argument, I don't think there's any question they are. You've always heard the argument about weight training and it makes muscles more susceptible to injury and everything else. I don't know that I believe that, but they're in better shape than they ever were.
We are no longer in the realm where lifting weights messes with your jumper.
Players,
put it that way,
back in the day, would, fend for themselves when it came to food.
Yes.
And you got young guys, at home. Well, they're not eating well.
Larry Bird's training consisted of not drinking beer during the season.
Teams now provide meals for players at practice. They get breakfast, they get lunch, they get take home for dinner. Provided. Travel. Back in the day, guys used to show up at the airport in the morning because you had to fly in at ungodly hours.
Mhm.
And if you had to fly in the day of the game to get somewhere, you had to fly on the first flight out. So you were flying out at 6 in the morning. And ridiculous travel situations. You're also carrying your own bags. You're doing all that stuff. But you were going to airports. You're dealing with the things that all the rest of us deal with. Well, they don't do that anymore. They all fly on charter jets. So travel could not be any easier.